all of this to me is interconnected with our Constitution in one way or another. We've discussed our military, we've discussed our law enforcement, we've talked about the courts, immigration, free speech. These are all things that are within the boundaries of the Constitution. Would you agree with that?
I definitely would.
What is happening to the Constitution? And what I mean by that is, Mike, I've read the Constitution many times over my lifetime for different reasons, different times, but I've read it a few times. And it's always discussed as though it's like this document that's written in these crazy terms and only the most literate, scholarly people in the world can decipher what their true meanings are. But when I read it, everything seems very clear to me. And it's like everybody's looking for some gray area to, stick into the Constitution.
Well, let me say this. And if you just stumbled upon our Random Waypoints podcast, welcome aboard. We're going to give you a lesson here in the Constitution of the United States. So, Phil, I think what you're talking about here is the main thing that's going on is I don't think that most Americans, if I asked right now, your average American on the street, if you and I decided to go get off the microphone, go downtown New York City and walk around, and we asked them, what is the American Constitution? I don't think anybody would be able to give us a definitive, very good answer. And I think that's one of the problems. So let's start out with the Constitution of the United States, right? It has basically 7 articles, okay? It's very simple. It has 7 articles of the Constitution, and then there are 27 amendments to the Constitution, of which the amendments, the first 10 of them, are what we call the Bill of Rights. So you could break it into 3 parts: 7 articles, first 10 amendments, second 10 amendments. Now, there are some amendments and some articles that are more, when I say more important than others, are more known than others because they directly affect more people. Let's just say it that way. So I'll give you an example, and sometimes I got to cheat and look at a number, but like if you look at like the Bill of Rights as an example, some of those are important, and then other ones are like more of I don't want to say they're footnotes, but they're definers of some of the other ones. And then obviously the amendments, as you know, there's 27 amendments. There's really only 20. I think there's really only 22 because one was a repealed, right? The 18th Amendment was repealed because it was the banning alcohol, and then there were a couple other ones that were basically superseded by following amendments. So they're not really completely in effect any longer, although they didn't rescind them. They modified them. But in the to look at this as a broad perspective, every single thing about America is in the Constitution, whether it's in the articles or in the amendments. That's it. There isn't anything else. So every single time anybody goes to court, whether it's your local court or your Supreme Court, or Phil, you drive too fast, you get a ticket, you got to show up at court. That is talked about in the Constitution, and it's defined how we handle it, what your rights are to court, who are the people that are trying you, who are the people that have been appointed to make the laws, the fact that you're as equal as I am because we're both citizens and it can't be discriminated against race and sex. All of this is defined already in the Constitution. There isn't anything that's not. So what people don't understand is that we have this argument going on today between, let's just call it the liberals versus the conservatives. Both sides are ignoring the Constitution to large extents. and they're arguing a bunch of stuff that actually was already defined
Right.
several hundred years ago. It's been backed up a million times. And like you said, Phil, if you read any of the articles or any of the amendments, they're written in plain English. They're not hard to, they're not at all hard to read. Like, so I think you and I off the record, not on the podcast, we're having this conversation last week. And I think we were talking about, in particular, the amendment number 2 which is part of, by quote, the Bill of Rights. So people don't realize the Bill of Rights is part of the Constitution. Amendments 2, which people commonly refer to as the right to bear arms, right? So I'm just focusing on that one. And if I read it, and I have it in front of me, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's that simple. It was written to protect us as citizens against the government. And that I broadly hear on a daily basis. People misconstrue that to mean that it was to we have the right to have guns. That is not exact. That is not what it says.
They try to hang their hats on the word militia, but if
Correct.
you really understood it, forget about what the word militia means.
Yep.
What has the definition of the word militia meant since the inception of this country in
Correct.
America?
That's right.
And a militia was always referenced to some group of people outside the box that are protecting the box.
Correct.
That makes sense. I don't think I said
Yep.
that.
Yes, that's exact. No, that makes total sense. And that's the thing is so. That's just one example. That's one example I could read. I could read just about any of these amendments, and they're very, very simple.
I agree, bro.
But we've gotten off track, and the reason and I'm going to extrapolate here a little bit, Phil. The reason I think you brought this up is because I believe that we're at a crossroads in this. I think the country has reached a point, and I'm going to give you my conspiracy theory here.
Ooh.
And I'm not a conspiracy theorist guy, but I think the America has reached the end of the Constitution. And what I mean by that is I think that if you were to take a vote today, if you made every single United States citizen read the entire Constitution front to back and vote it whether they like it or not, I suspect it would not be super popular. I think people are going to find lots of challenges and lots of things that they want to either add, because I think we're in a society right now which is inflationary, right? So to tell somebody that the Constitution consists of 7 articles and 27 amendments, they're like, well, that's it? There's nothing else? No, there's nothing else. There isn't a bunch of little nitpicking, silly details put in this. This is very general. It's a framework that is all encompassing, which is, by the way, why it was such a miracle that the country has lasted so long, because people always say, well, what happened 250 years ago with guns isn't applicable today. They didn't have guns that could shoot 100 bullets a second. No. That's not what the Constitution says, and it is still relevant today. That's what makes the document so special. The problem is we have reached a crossroads, and I believe that, and here's my conspiracy theory, I don't think either side is necessarily supporting the Constitution. And
Right.
although the conservatives preach a constitutionalist attitude, I think that they're largely full of shit. And there's a couple things that are going on right now. I believe that if Donald Trump was not 78 years old or 79 or however old he is, and even though the fact that he is that old, I believe that he is underway of trying to circumvent, change, or abolish the Constitution altogether. And specifically to, I believe it's the 25th Amendment. No, that's maybe 20. I can't remember which one it is. I forgot. I confused the numbers. 22nd Amendment, maybe, which is the one that talks about the president can only have 2 terms. I think that
The 20th.
20th Amendment. Yep, says that the president can only have 2 terms. I think we are at a junction here where you actually have a fair amount of more support than you would imagine that may agree with that. And I think this week is a major. So here's my conspiracy theory. One of the things we did not bring up on the podcast yet is that Pete Hegseth has called all of the generals and all of the top military from all over the world to Washington next Tuesday, which, by the way, is unprecedented and historical in the fact that that's never really been done. I think they said the last
I
time it
thought
was
we
done.
weren't supposed to do that.
Well, Phil, you're right. That brings up a good point. Now we just put every major guy in the same room together. That's a no-brainer. That's stupid. But he's calling them all in there, and people have arguing already. The argument has gone out. Well, what is it? What are they up to? Is America going to war? Is he gonna? What is this all about? I'm going to tell you what I think it's about.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are analyzing who is on Trump's team and who is not on Trump's team. And I think they're doing this well in advance of 2028. And I think that you're creating a scenario because, look, when you want to overthrow or put martial law or ditch the Constitution or whatever you want to call it, and it's been done in other countries, who do you need on your team? You need the military on your team. So if they can get enough Trumpers as generals, game over, guys. Game over. And in 2027, when Trump says, we have unprecedented amounts of terrorism going on, and this drug war is so bad, we are going to, and he'll spin it any way he does in his Trump fashion, and all the Trumpers are going to believe him, and he's going to go, we're going to suspend the Constitution right now indefinitely, while we fix everything, and we're going to not hold elections because we can't verify that they're going to be any good. And he's going to have military backing to pull this off. And I don't give a shit what the liberals or what AOC or what Gavin Newsom have to say about it. He wins.
Mike, I am feeling good right now because I have been slowly slipping in subject matter and topics, hoping that you saw exactly what you just said. So I don't have nothing to say. I agree with exactly what you said, how you said it. Welcome aboard to the conspiracy train.
let me preface this by saying I do not believe big time in conspiracy theories, and I'm going to say something else. The only thing I could say that is a difficulty in all this is the fact that Donald Trump is almost 80 years old. So if God forbid he was 60 right now, we would be fucked.
We would be constantly hearing the discussion about a third or fourth or no term limit, period.
Correct. But, for him to pull a Putin, I'll call it pulling a Putin, and have J.D. Vance run as the next president and Trump still has the power behind the scenes because, look, he created a new government role for Elon Musk, which, by the way, they're back to being buddies again, too. But he created a government role for Elon Musk. He could certainly create a government role for himself as the grand overseer of the presidency, very similar to what Putin pulled off in Russia. To say that he's going to retain or the MAGA movement or his cohorts are going to retain power I think you're out of your mind if you don't think this is what they're trying to do.
Mike, you have really hit the nail on the head. We are so on the same page right now. People will probably their retort to what you have to say is, yeah, they could get the 4 generals to be in tune with what he said, but the American soldiers, how are they going to get all those American soldiers to carry out?
Because that's how the military works.
And not only that, I literally brought this subject up about following orders. We had a segment called Following Orders where I discussed about the mentality of following orders. And I had other information that I didn't get into about different research that has been done over and over again at different colleges where they've asked people to subjugate other people, to commit violence against them, to inflict pain on them. And it only took a person with position to say, oh no, that's a good thing, or that's the right thing. And they was all with it. The
Yep.
point I'm getting to is regardless of what sounds logical to the reality is psychologically, most human beings, if a person who they recognize as a person of power or position over them, they generally just follow orders.
Fall in line.
Hmm.
So, and let me be clear here for those that we've now just lost on our podcast that are like, what the hell what are these guys talking about? I'm not suggesting that this is going to necessarily succeed. What I'm suggesting is this is definitely being talked about, being planned, and they're testing the waters, very similar to the dinosaurs testing the fence. They're looking at this. Like, be clear, this is happening. This is not happening. The second piece of that is, I'm not saying that a lot of things that they're doing aren't good and that I don't agree. So here's the problem. And I've said this a million times. I'm going to repeat it again. The reason that this is happening and the reason that Donald Trump is in power and the reason that he is now pushing potentially the end of the Constitution is because of Joe Biden and because of Kamala Harris and because of the Democrats. They are the ones that put these guys in power. They're the ones that basically showed America that we're better off under Trump, because the reality is we are better off under Trump because they weren't picking the right people. If the Democrats, from now until 2028, or when they got to pick somebody to run, if they could come up with somebody that can challenge what I'm saying, thank God. But I don't hear that happening. I hear Zoran Mandami and I hear AOC, and all I hear is a bunch of crazy whack jobs. You've got, like, what's her name the other day? Like, if you listened, and I know my liberal friends aren't going to listen to a fucking word I say right now because they just get the blinders on. But if you listen to what's the chick, the one from Somalia that's in Michigan or wherever,
Ilman something.
yeah, Ilman Omar, whatever her name is. If you read the transcripts of the stuff that she has said in the last 4 months, you are out of your
Last 4 months.
mind. You are out of your mind if you think that she is protecting the Constitution of the United States of America. You are a sick, demented, fucking twisted, liberal listening idiot. I'm
Mike, you
sorry
talking
to
about
say
the
it that
last
way.
4 months? I just don't want our listeners to think that she started doing this 4 months
no.
ago. You would
No.
go back 14 years.
For all practical purposes, she's infiltrated the United States. She came in as a terrorist, basically. And I use that word. I use that word carefully here because I mean it that way. I don't mean as a terrorist as meaning militaristic or trying to kill anybody or any of that stuff. But she's come in as a terrorist to the culture of the United States. She wants to instill a different set of parameters and define a different society than what is defined in that Constitution that we've been talking about with those 7 articles and those 27 amendments. That is not that's not her playbook. That is not her playbook.
I don't have a problem with that. The problem part that I have is, Mike, if you were to do the exact same thing that you said that she's doing, I have no problem with you doing that. The problem I have is, and I've been consistent on this, is someone whose heritage is outside this border and you've only been here recently you have affiliations, you have loyalties to other places. I have an issue with those people. I have an issue with you being allowed to be in Congress, to be in the Senate, to be a governor, or any kind of major government position where you can affect the flow of American society.
Well, I agree,
Should
Phil, but
not even be. I'll stand on this. She should not be able to Moldami. What's her name that ran for president? Kamala Harris.
Mhm.
Um, there was some guy the election before where he was actually born in Canada that was running for president. I can't remember who it was.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I can't remember his name either.
But I'm strong on that. If you can't show me 150 years of your family being in this country, you should not be up for any of this stuff. And I'm
But
not against you being here. I'm not against you having every citizenship right that every other citizen has. But you should not be infecting our politics with your ideologies. And I think it takes about 150 years for you to get all that out of you.
well, I agree with you on, but I'll take it another step. I agree that she has every right to be in the United States. She came here legally. She's here. I'm fine. I'm fine with her views. She has every right to have all those views. I don't think that she has the right to be a senator and have those views, and I don't think that. I'm going to take it a step further. The additional problem with her is that she's not signed on to the Constitution. So that's so that would be a problem if it was you or me, Phil. And we've been here in America for many years. If we are going to run and not follow the Constitution, by definition, if you read the Constitution, by definition, senators, congressmen, Supreme Court, they all have to follow the Constitution. So, but I'm arguing that she's wrong for two reasons: your reason, and she's simply not following the law. Listen to what she says. Just simply listen to what she says. Don't take it from me. Go listen to all her stuff that she
Oh,
said. She's
bro.
crazy.
I've literally seen where a person is given like 30 minutes of clips and they weren't, and some of them were even in other countries and she was talking another language and they had to put the titles up.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she ain't never had nothing good to say about America. I'm
No,
like, what made you come here?
right.
And that's a problem I have too. Before we aired, I just saw something where I don't want to mention the person's nationality, but they were talking about the politics and they were talking about how great their country is. And I'm like, so why are you here? Why are you
I mean,
here
yeah.
if you coming from this great country with this great heritage and ideology and culture? Why are you here? There must be something better about being here.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that's. I'm not going to say anything else about this, and hopefully, everybody out there in listening world has not decided now that we're absolutely out of our minds. But we're trying to. Well, at least I'm going to speak for myself. I'm trying to prove a point here that this is a lot more serious than people are giving this credit, because we are at my fear about being at a crossroads, particularly with the Constitution, is if the Constitution falls apart, America falls apart. And that's being propagated by both sides. That isn't just a Republican or a Democrat thing. Both sides, in my opinion, are not necessarily upholding the Constitution. They're trying to bend it in all sorts of a myriad of ways for different reasons and in different ways, but they're both trying to bend it. And that's scary. And you can see that in the Supreme Court right now, where Trump was able to nominate enough justices that it's a legitimate question of whether the Supreme Court is remaining neutral or not.
Oh,
And
it ain't
actually,
neutral at all.
well, thank you, Phil. And whether or not but if they're not neutral, then by definition, are they going to uphold the Constitution of the United States? And I think the answer to that is no. And if your top court isn't going to uphold it, we're in trouble.
Mike, we've already had them do stuff that was anti-constitutional.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't want to get into each individual one. Maybe we'll have that argument or whatever on another day.
Yep.
But there's already been things that have come up before the Supreme Court where I was like, that goes against the Constitution. So it's
Yeah,
already
because
happening.
so here's the here. This is another thing I want to say about the Constitution. What's nice about it is that you or I can read it, and the Supreme Court justice can read it, and both of us can understand it at the same level. It is
Right.
not written for rocket scientists. You know what I'm saying? It is written in very plain, very basic English. It's not really that difficult to read.
I
So
agree.
it's not a legalese document. You know what I mean? It's
I
not one of
know.
those things where you pick up and you go, "Oh my God, what in the hell is this thing talking about?"
Hmm.
So the point of the thing, it's very difficult, and you hear that argument, by the way, that it's going to be a really difficult decision for them to make because there's a lot of ambiguity. And no, there is not. That's a bullshit argument.
Thank you,
It's a bullshit argument.
bro. I'm getting hyped up right now. You
Why did I come on board the Phil team or something here? We're changing the name, by the way. Next week, it's 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 not random waypoints anymore. It's welcome to conspiracy points.
well, Mike, I almost feel compelled to. First of all, I just want to get my conspiracy theories out. So it's a very selfish reason, the very first one. But the other one is I don't want to be repeating the same exact thing everybody's saying on the same podcast. I could basically just report the news and just
Right.
agree or disagree like everybody else, pick a side. I don't want to do that. I want to be a human being that just looks at it the way it is and talk about it.
And which, by the way, and I do this a lot. We bring up other podcasters and we talk about our sort of industry here.
Hmm.
If you listen to other podcasters, and I highly encourage you to go out to listen to other people, I have found one of the reasons I like to listen to podcasting is because most of the podcasters are very similar to us in a sense that they are giving it from their viewpoint and they're just looking at it as a black and white situation in front of them, unbiased, unrelated to the government or to the right wing talking points or the left wing talking points. Because, I mean, just this week, I heard podcasters both on the left and right, including the big ones like Joe Rogan and Alex from Who's Your Daddy, talking about free speech and other stuff. And by the way, they all pretty much agreed. In fact, all of them said basically what we said here today. So there are people that do their research, and there are people out there that are understanding of this. And my fear is that, like everything else, the narrative that comes out from both the mainstream media and from the right wing conspiracy spinners and the left wing spinners is all these talking points, and that's what the bulk of Americans listen to. They're not listening to logic or you and I just said, well, we just read the shit. To get ready for the podcast today, I started reading the Constitution, and I was looking through, and in fact, I got notes right over here. I wrote down the numbers because I confuse the numbers all the time, admittedly, and I wrote them down, which each one is. And by the way, when you write them all down, you go, okay, that one deals with religion. That one deals with guns. That one's talking about soldiers taking over homes, search and seizure, due process, speedy trial, jury trial, how to set bail. The very basic things, each one of these things. And when you look at it that way, you get to the end and you go, wow, this is really not very complicated. But then you think of something, well, what in America doesn't fit into one of these scenarios?
So,
Nothing.
so Mike, let's end this podcast with going through the first 10 amendments.
Hmm. The Bill of Rights.
Real, right. Real quickly, just go through the first 10 or I'm sorry, the first 14. Let's just quickly go through. I'll read the statement, and then we'll just briefly say what we
Well,
think.
I mean, you could just do it where I just did. Number one is religion. I mean, you barely have to read the thing. I mean, it's your right to choose religion,
So,
right? I mean, simple.
right. So number one is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a
Mhm.
redress of grievances.
Yep.
Well,
Separation of
who does
church and
that not
state.
who does that not cover?
Everybody.
It literally, whatever category you want to throw yourself in, it is very quickly told you you got the right to say what you want to say.
Exactly.
Nothing
Yeah.
else.
And nowhere in there does it say that you have the right to say it without consequences. It does not say that.
Right. And it doesn't differentiate what kind of speech is free speech.
That's right.
The Second Amendment, we already went over that.
Guns.
Right. The third one is no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law.
And I
So,
translate that into English as we're not a military state. You can't soldier. They by the way, they wrote this constitution because of separating from England, and and that was common for soldiers to come and commandeer people's homes. So
mhm.
that to me, that's just an amendment separating military from private citizens.
The officers used to literally just pick all the nicest houses in
Yep.
a city and just move in.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes they would allow them to stay, and they would actually be like the maid and the servants for their own house.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep.
And just the last part it says, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So
Mhm.
it does right there clearly let you know domain eminent domain can be used,
Correct.
but there's a legal process that you
Yep.
have to go through
Which,
for the
by the
legal.
way, that legal process you're referring to is covered later on in the Constitution.
Right. Now, number four is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, this one,
That's the basis for all of our quote police activity in the United States.
this is often the most quoted amendment that gets people off the hook in law
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because we as a country, we can say all the little negative things we want to say about law enforcement in the country, but our country has the most protections against the law being used against you.
Yep.
And it's very clear. And we did enough, Mike. We did four. I just wanted to make the point. There ain't no room for no
No.
interpretation in these
Well,
things.
you also just made a point. The Constitution is largely written to protect the citizens against the government. Like
Well,
that's
it says that in the first few sentences.
exactly. So, I mean, just so you know, that's what it's for. So, the irony of that is that because you've got both sides at this point kind of throwing it to the side, that's a scary thing. That is not in our advantage as Americans, as citizens. That's the scary part.
Well, hopefully, me and you, Mike, will live long enough to see what happens or what doesn't happen.
Well, I don't know. I keep looking out the window here because I'm a little afraid, saying some of the things I might have said on the podcast today. Everybody hates me now.
Oh, I've gotten nobody's been like stern with me. They've been more like talking to me like a child. Like they are explaining something to me that I don't see clearly
Right.
or
I've
what.
gotten that.
That's
Mike, do you know you got to be careful when you say that and this because, I've already thought of that.
and I don't mind some people. I really get the idea that, oh, they're concerned about me, but then almost the other half, it's like, okay, this is your passive aggressive way of making your point to me.
Right.
You're opposed to what I have to say, and you can't just say that. So you going
Mhm.
around the corner, around the block to make that point and scare me, or think you gonna scare me.
So hopefully more of you write in and talk to us because we want to know your viewpoints too. It's not just about what we're saying. I mean, I'd like to believe that we are doing a decent job of gathering the viewpoints from a bunch of different sides and presenting them here, but I would love to hear from a bunch of listeners as to what your viewpoint is, and tell us what you disagree with us on, because I'd love to talk about that.
And just for new listeners or people who just didn't know, a
Or found us
majority
by accident, God forbid.
a majority of the topics that we discuss, somebody told us to bring them up.
Right.
Somebody has brought. We're not just like venting. We are just like you said. We're kind of giving you a synopsis of what we're hearing.
Yeah, and the Constitution thing, just as an add-on to what you just said, Phil, has been brought up by a number of listeners over the last 6 months, and that is interesting. I think in itself is that heard more and more people referring back to that because I think we're not the only ones that have stumbled upon the fact that that is under attack right now. And I think that it's starting to even hit some mainstream media at this point. Obviously, we spent the better part of the last 2 weeks talking about free speech, which is all part of that. But I think more and more people are becoming concerned with that, and that's a scary thing.
I agree with that. And what I'm about to say, I don't have any statistics or facts to back it. This is just something I think or feel, however you want to word it. The reason I feel like we are more susceptible to the loss of the Constitution or the revamping in a negative way of the Constitution now more than at any other time. And the main reason is I don't think, and like I said, this is my thought. I don't have any facts. I would venture to say that at no time in the history of the United States has there been so few people who know the Constitution.
I would agree. I think there's two things going on there. One is that our education system is lacking and not focused on some of this because there's way too much influence work going on from both sides to try to influence our children, number one. And number two, I do think because of the immigration issue and the rate at which people are immigrating, and maybe we're not doing a good job at education from people coming in, I don't think they're learning it well either. And I just think that it's being lost.
And Benjamin Franklin he ruined two things for America. He ruined the Constitution and
Hmm.
and he ruined the Bible.
Yep.
So I'll start with the Bible. Mike, we've talked about it times. I've literally gone to theological school. I so often hear people quote the Bible, and it'll be something that's from the Farmer's Almanac. It is not from the Bible.
Yep.
And the same thing with the Constitution. I will hear somebody say, this is in the Constitution, that's in the Constitution. And I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that a quote from the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin?
Yep.
The point that I'm getting to is it's gotten to the point where you'll have a person standing in front of you and they are adamant about their knowledge of the Constitution. They're adamant about their position. And then they'll quote something that ain't from nowhere near the Constitution.
Exactly. And that you saw that during our election cycle. People were talking about all sorts of issues and they were quoting the Constitution in it, and the Constitution does not directly address any of those issues.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't. Those all issues are addressed indirectly. However, they're talking like it's written in the Constitution. I'm like, no, 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 it's not.
I worked for, I won't say the name, but it was a Fortune 100 company. And I also worked for other companies that are Fortune 500 companies. And they all had one thing similar put in place. Before you could ever get your cubicle or your office or whatever the case may be, you had to read like a little manual, sometimes a book, and the first few pages, I can't think of the word now, but it's basically like the Constitution for
Well,
that company.
all the companies had a mission statement, right?
Mission statement.
Yeah,
And
it's the same thing.
the Constitution is our mission statement. And
Correct.
just like on a job, you might know the technical skills necessary to do your job, but you can't perform your job 100% if you don't know what the mission of the company is.
That's right.
And this company, and that's what the government is if you look at it from just logistics, statistics, and things like that. It is absolutely a business. It cannot run successfully if its employees, that's us, because we pay the taxes.
Yep.
If we don't know the mission statement to follow, and it's not a lot of thoughts that people have are instituted at a young age. If we went back to pressuring education to make a big thing about you must learn the Constitution, I think a lot of stuff would be eradicated in about 10 years as those kids grow up and graduate. Because we got a bunch of stupid kids with ideas and they're not even related to anything concrete.
Yeah, you're right.
Mike, you got anything else you want to say?
Oh, wow. Huh. Next week we're going to read the Declaration of Independence.
Mike, I felt like we had to address it.
We definitely do. I don't think enough people are talking about it.
I know that you know the Constitution. So we could have had this conversation without quoting anything, without mentioning the numbers or whatever. But the point was, I want other people to maybe be like, okay, let me pick it up again. Because some people, it's just they done forgot. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I want people to pick up the Constitution. That's our mission statement, and then apply it to everything that you're talking about in politics now.
Exactly. And if you do that, you're gonna know we're in big trouble.
Anything else, Mike?
That's it, Phil.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on a trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.